Anyone who has ever played Oblivion knows that its Mages Guild questline is capital B boring. But has anyone ever thought of being a little bit more constructive and thinking about how it can be improved? What's up guys, Ace of Thorn here and welcome to another lore and discussion video. It's no secret that Oblivion's Mages Guild questline is underwhelming. In fact, I have heard it described as among the worst faction questlines that Bethesda has ever written. And considering that the video I heard this from also referenced Fallout 4 and therefore necessarily knew about the Minutemen questline, that's saying quite a lot. Today, I would not only like to discuss in depth where Bethesda went wrong with the Mages Guild questline, but next week I will take this discussion and build off of it to rewrite the questline so that it is at least bearable. When you first sign up with the Mages Guild questline, you do not yet have access to the Arcane University. To get access there, you must obtain a recommendation from every local guild hall in the game. Right off the bat, this is a huge strike against the questline. The fact that you need a recommendation from all 7 guild halls is not only tedious and annoying from a gameplay perspective, but it also makes no sense in-universe. Why would the guild trust these local guild hall leaders with leadership over their local guild hall, and yet their recommendation for access to the Arcane University is only worth 1/7 of a damn? But even more annoying than that is the recommendation quests themselves. To earn these recommendations, you are put to some of the most menial tasks imaginable. Fetch the ring from this well, retrieve a stolen Mages Guild staff, go fetch the ball, bring it back, go fetch it again. Ah! And the worst part is, Bethesda knows that these tasks are menial because the game comes right out and says point blank that the tasks are indeed menial. Specifically, the leader of the Anvil Mages Guild outright calls the other recommendation quests frivolous.
Unlike some frivolous tasks you may be given at other guild halls, this is a serious matter and has consequences.
I honestly can't tell if the fact that Bethesda knows about the frivolousness of their own quests makes the recommendations section of this questline better or worse. However, the fact that you have to acquire a recommendation from every guild hall can arguably be considered crucial to the plot. During your Chaden Hall recommendation, it is revealed that the leader of the guild hall, Falcar, is in possession of black soul gems, which will become important to the plot later on. Since you have to obtain recommendations from every guild hall, that ensures that you'll pass by Chaden Hall and therefore pick up this important plot information. However, as we'll learn next week when I discuss my rewriting of the questline, there are ways you can do that without forcing us to do these extremely tedious tasks. So after giving it some thought, I have to say that this isn't actually necessary to the plot after all. So when we finally get to the Arcane University, we are tasked with acquiring a mage's staff for ourselves. We are told in the Breville recommendation that a mage's staff carries great symbolic importance to its wielder, and Raminus confirms that every true mage carries one. However, while they build up the importance of the staff as a symbol of status for a mage early in the questline, it never really amounts to anything. There's never any discussion about the importance of a staff after this one quest. This is a blatant violation of Chekhov's gun. For those of you who don't know, there was a 19th century Russian author and playwright named Anton Chekhov. Like Shakespeare, he is considered one of the founding fathers of modern literature, and his rules of writing are still followed by some of the best writers even to this day. One of those rules, known as Chekhov's gun, goes as follows. Remove everything that has no relevance to the plot. If you say in the first chapter that there is a rifle hanging on the wall, in the second or third chapter it absolutely must go off. If it's not going to be fired, it shouldn't be hanging there. In other words, everything in a story, no matter how small or insignificant, has to have a payoff of some kind. In Oblivion's Mages Guild quest, they set up the symbolic importance of a mage's staff only to do nothing with it after setting it up. This is exactly the sort of thing Anton Chekhov was talking about. Story-wise, the only thing the Quest Mages staff appears to do is introduce the Necromancers as the main villains of this quest line, by having it be the Necromancers' first open attack on the guild. While this quest is certainly competent at doing that, I personally feel it could be handled a lot better, but I'll get into that next week when I discuss my rewriting of the quest line. After we report the Necromancer's presence at Wellspring Cave and acquire a mage's staff of our own, we are sent to Skingrad to meet with Count Hasseldor. While we're told that we are just there to retrieve a book, we eventually learn that we were in fact there to spy on Hasseldor. This quest not only seems entirely pointless in retrospect, but it also makes no sense in the moment. Story-wise, the only thing this quest seems to do is set up Count Hasseldor for another quest where he plays a role. This second quest he is involved in is the only one that actually advances the main plot, but even as a standalone quest it makes no sense. Why would Romanus tell you to fetch a book when he really wanted you to spy on Hasseldor? What does the guild gain from that deception? He says the council believed there was no need to tell you the full details, but weren't you just going to figure out the truth anyway when you inevitably met Hasseldor only to realize he doesn't have the book you're looking for? For that matter, if the player character believed that he was just on library duty, he probably wasn't going to be very attentive to the things Hasseldor was doing that didn't directly concern his duty to retrieve that book. This deception could have been used to the story's advantage. It could have established the guild's leadership as being misleading narrators for the remainder of the quest line. But like the symbolic importance of a mage's staff, it never amounts to anything beyond this one quest. And if it's not going to amount to anything, don't put it in there. So, after that quest, you're sent on a purely superfluous quest in an Ayleid ruin. This quest isn't supposed to advance the plot in-universe, it's designed to give you a break from the Necromancers, so I'll give it a pass. After that, you're back on Necromancer duty. Turns out the guild has no idea what Black Soul Gems even are, and they're putting you to the task of figuring that out. Okay, 1. Deja of Cheydinhall apparently knows exactly what Black Soul Gems are. Why not just ask her? 2. If you don't know what Black Soul Gems are, how do you know that they count as evidence of necromancy? Anyway, you're sent to the dungeon known as Dark Fissure to try and find out how Black Soul Gems are made. And here we see the primary problem with this questline from a gameplay standpoint. Half the questline involves nothing more than Necromancer dungeon after Necromancer dungeon, and it gets repetitive pretty fast. Next, we are given the quest Liberation or Apprehension. Turns out Traven has sent a mole into the Necromancer's home turf to try and get intel from them, but he has stopped sending his reports in, so he tasks you with finding this guy and bringing him in for questioning. Now, the name of this quest suggests that you might actually get a choice of how to handle this quest, perhaps even an opportunity to defect the Necromancers yourself. But nope, this informant is already dead when you get to that final room of that dungeon, and there's no branching storylines. Furthermore, because the informant is already dead and there's no opportunity to save him, this quest ultimately amounts to nothing more than a standard Necromancer dungeon crawl. By this point, that formula has already gotten repetitive, but it's only going to get worse from here. Story-wise, the only thing this quest appears to contribute to is that it helps to build up the Necromancer threat as being serious. The Necromancers apparently caught wind of the fact that the informant was a spy, and so slaying him shows the Necromancers to be both cunning and powerful. However, this ultimately doesn't need to happen, since the stakes in this questline are about to skyrocket in the very next quest. So after we report our failure to Archmage Travern, he sends us back to Skingrad to get some intel from Count Hasseldor. We get some vampire hunters out of his hair, and he tells us that the Necromancers are being led by the King of Worms, Mana Marco. Now, if you're well read on Elder Scrolls lore, you know that the stakes just went through the roof. Short of a literal Daedric prince, this is the most ominous threat the guild could possibly face. Mana Marco is a big deal. While Elder Scrolls Online hadn't come out yet as of the time this questline was written, the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall had, and all his history from that game is behind this game. In Daggerfall, Mana Marco was a main character and one of 7 parties you could end the main quest in favor of. He has lived for thousands of years. Records of his meddling in Tamriel's affairs date back as far as the First Era. And with this long life comes literal millennia of magical and arcane knowledge that he has at his disposal. Mana Marco has enough magical experience to give an entire army of High Elves a run for their money. However, he isn't content with immortality. As of the events of Daggerfall, he desires nothing less than to become a god. Although Oblivion gives no mention as to whether he ever achieved that goal, or if he ever gave up on it. In the First Era, he founded a necromancer cult known as the Order of the Black Worm, hence his nickname, the King of Worms. The necromancer cult is now known to be, hands down, the most powerful necromancer faction in all of Tamriel, if not all of Mundus. So yeah, long story short, the news that Mana Marco is in the hood means that shit just got real. This, of course, makes the previous quest entirely pointless as a means of raising the stakes. Honestly, nothing you could do in that dungeon crawl could possibly match the foreboding that accompanied the news that Mana f***ing Marco was leading the current Necromancer menace. So, how does Archmage Traven respond to this extremely ominous news? By spending several days with the Council of Mages deliberating on how to respond to Mana Marco's presence. I knew the guild was largely incompetent, considering that its Bruma Guildhall leader was incapable of using a simple detect life spell to find Jaskar, or how Skingrad's Guildhall was unable to even keep track of where it sent its own members to do research, but this just takes the cake. So after several days of deliberating and being unable to decide on how to deal with Mana Marco, apparently the idea of just walking up and killing him never occurred to these idiots. You were tasked with checking on the Bruma Mages Guild, as they have stopped sending in their regular reports. You go there to find the entire place ransacked, and the sole survivor of the attack, Jaskar, who you were supposed to locate for the Bruma recommendation, reveals that the one behind the attack was Mana Marco himself. Where do I even begin with this garbage? Okay, first of all, Bethesda most likely included this set piece in the questline as a means of raising the stakes and making the rivalry with Mana Marco personal. While that is certainly a good intention, it fails spectacularly on so many levels. First of all, what is this supposed to mean to me as the player? The Bruma Mages Guild didn't strike me as being any more significant to the guild than any of the other guild halls I got the recommendations from. The characters had some personality to them, but then again, so did the characters of the Leyawiin Mages Guild, as well as the Cheydinhal Mages Guild. I certainly didn't feel any special attachment to these people in particular, aside from the mere loss of innocent life for its own sake, which could have been accomplished by destroying literally any other guild hall, and for that matter, had already been accomplished by destroying the people in Wellspring Cave. There is nothing specific to the Bruma Hall that makes this any more of a personal gut punch than when Wellspring Cave was attacked. This was handled so much better in the Dark Brotherhood questline. During the quest Purification, you are tasked with assassinating every member of the Cheydinhal Sanctuary. This really serves as a gut punch to the player because you've had an opportunity to develop an attachment to these people, getting tips from them on how to handle your contract up to that point and stuff like that. Second, this has got to be the quietest blazing fire in the history of either Nirn or Arth. Until you actually set foot inside the guild hall, the rest of Bruma looks completely untouched. How did Mana Marco manage to destroy the inside of the guild hall, complete with raging fires, while leaving the outside of the guild hall unscathed and the rest of Bruma as peaceful as it's ever been? Third, the reason you are sent to check up on the guild hall is because they stopped sending in their regular reports. So presumably, it has been several weeks before the council realized that something was amiss, and yet the attack from Mana Marco, which is presumably the reason behind the lack of reports, is just wrapping up as you arrive there. So, has the attack been going on for several weeks without anyone else in Bruma ever witnessing it? Fourth, considering that Jaskar tells us that Mana Marco was behind the attack, we therefore learn that Mana Marco is the one leading the charge from Jaskar, which begs the question, why did we need Hasseldor to tell us this in the first place? Couldn't we have just learned it from Jaskar? So now that Mana Marco has made it personal for the guild by attacking the Bruma Guild Hall, I guess Wellspring Cave wasn't personal enough for these bozos. Archmage Traven finally resolves to take some action. Before the guild can launch an assault on Mana Marco, however, it turns out some relics have been stolen. Turns out the guild has been in possession of some of Mana Marco's old relics. The Necromancer's Amulet and the Bloodworm Helm, for a while now, and some guild members have stolen them so they can return them to their master. Now, we of course cannot allow these relics to fall into Mana Marco's hands, since he's a big enough threat as it is. So as the only competent member of the entire faction, you are of course sent to retrieve them both. We can't just have you go after one of the relics and have some other battle mage go after the other one, because let's be real here, you're the only person in this entire guild who isn't going to royally fuck it up. But from a gameplay standpoint, this is just boring. 3 consecutive Necromancer dungeon crawls, and 2 of them aren't even necessary to the main plot. They're just there to reacquire some stolen relics. Only the third quest, Ambush, actually has you retrieving an item you need to be able to defeat Mana Marco, a colossal black soul gem. When you finally acquire it, you report back to Traven, and he explains that the soul gem was originally meant to trap his soul, and that with the gem in your possession, you'll be immune to Mana Marco's attempts to ensnare you. Wait, how does he know either of those things? He says that he has sources, but that is not an explanation as to how he knows these things. It's an excuse for Bethesda not to give an explanation. Well, you know what? I don't have to worry about that anymore because his character is gone. He soul traps himself to fuel the Colossal Soul Gem so you can use it to shield yourself. Wait, what? Holy shit. This right here is probably the most interesting moment in the entire quest line. Bear in mind that Traven doesn't just lay down his life in order to stop the Necromancers. That alone would have been a big deal. But he does so while soul trapping himself. This means that he isn't just dying, he's giving up his normal afterlife in favor of an eternity in the soul camp, which is not a pleasant afterlife. But what really kills this moment is what came before the moment, which was not a damn thing. For such a noble sacrifice, it sure comes completely out of left field. Up to this point, Traven has been nothing more than a quest dispenser. He was literally 100% interchangeable with Romanus Polis, or any other guild leader you get contracts from. This sacrifice seems way too noble for us to not know anything about him. Why is he so committed to destroying necromancy that he is willing to lay down his life and give up his normal afterlife to do so? Now obviously, necromancy is evil, but then again, so is being a bandit. The mere fact that necromancy is evil and is a big problem in Cyrodiil is certainly a reason to fight against it, but a sacrifice this big suggests that he has some sort of past that makes him loathe necromancy with the passion of 1,000 suns. A part of his past that we never get to learn about, and that is just bull. So we go through yet another Necromancer dungeon. The only thing that makes this dungeon feel even a little bit unique is that the enemies come back to life after we kill them, since Mana Marco has the power to raise the dead multiple times, a power we'll take for ourselves when we kill him and take his staff. So with Mana Marco dead, At least until the next time he manages to escape the afterlife, like at the beginning of Elder Scrolls Online, the Mages Guild questline finally comes to a merciful end. So all in all, what can we say is wrong about the Mages Guild questline? After looking at the whole thing, I think we can safely say that there were 3 key failures in this questline. First, the questline was repetitive beyond sin. Half the questline consisted of nothing more than necromancer dungeon crawls, and that is not fun. Second, the guild was portrayed as being completely incompetent. The idea that someone of Mana Marco's caliber was actually needed to drive the guild to the brink of annihilation is preposterous. You get the feeling that a random bandit wizard could have given these guys a run for their money. Third, the characters receive almost no character development, other than just being generic white meat babyface good guys. Draven is the biggest offender of this, as his sacrifice at the end is grossly disproportionate to the complete lack of character development he received. This is why I have taken it upon myself to rewrite this questline and try to fix all 3 of this questline's major flaws. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, so we'll have to discuss how to fix that questline next week. And that will do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, be sure to subscribe for more in-depth story analysis of your favorite video games. And be sure to check out some of my Let's Plays, where I take a more lighthearted approach to these games and just have a good time. In the meantime, however, I am Acerthorn, and I will see you guys later.